Right now on Tech Radio, Apple's car wreck.
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online and on air with RTE Radio, we bring you the very latest in tech. You're welcome to episode 1008. This week, we have news on how Irish businesses are using AI, a hack on the Department of Foreign Affairs, and TikTok is tanking. We'll also be talking about esports with Mark Campbell from Lero. So let's get right into it.
From techcentral.ie, this is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Joining me as ever, our editor-in-chief, Niall Kitson. Breaking story as we are recording, that's the Department of Foreign Affairs hacked. What's the latest?
Yeah, it's a little bit up in the air. A hacker collective online has claimed to have stolen 7 gigs worth of data from the Department of Foreign Affairs, and they are, again, allegedly putting it up for sale. At the time that we're talking about this, it's a breaking story. The National Cybersecurity Centre and the Department of Foreign Affairs, through the Minister, which is Simon Harris, have come out and said, we have no evidence of this whatsoever. And this hacking group in the past has made unsubstantiated claims that we have done this. Apparently they haven't. So it's kind of a watch this space. We'll be covering it on Tech Central as things progress. Yeah. So how big is 7 gigs worth of data? Potentially it's the name and address of everyone in Ireland.
I know what you mean. What could they have? All I think of is somebody has stolen my passport photo. And I can assure you that's not worth any money whatsoever. Anyway, we'll keep an eye on that online. Other big stories this week. Apple has finally said that, no, we're not doing it. The whole Apple car rumor.
Yeah, Project Titan, officially it's done. I mean, Project Titan goes back to, 2014? And it was this wonderful idea that Apple are getting into EVs. What is an Apple car going to look like? What is Apple's take on it going to look like? I mean, we've seen with the Vision Pro, Apple's take on VR is really quite interesting and quite exciting. And we'll see how the market takes to it when it becomes more affordable for the average Joe like yourself and myself. What an Apple car would have looked like. I mean, personally, I had this image of something like from Minority Report, because that is our North Star when it comes to all things futurism. Yeah. Are you surprised?
No, actually, I'm not surprised because I think Apple getting into cars was just a mistake in the first place. And cars is a very big business, way bigger than making computers or iPods or phones or whatever. And
a less profitable business.
And a way less profitable business as well. Yeah. And then it would also, I don't think I would buy an Apple car because, as you know, I have a love-hate relationship with Apple. And I agree with you. I think whatever car they would have come up with would have been brilliant. All right. It would have looked amazing and it would be super luxurious and it would be 80% fantastic. But to be another 20% of it, that would be just terrible, which makes it a really bad investment. That's my experience with Apple.
You know what there would be 20% of, just to extend your analogy there, proprietary technology.
Oh my God. Listen, if you think living in a walled garden is bad enough, can you imagine driving in a walled car?
Well, that's it. Could you imagine taking a car to a garage and them going, sorry, we can't change your tires?
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what?
They're Apple tires.
The funniest comment I heard was, would you buy a car from a company who can't design a mouse? Because the wireless mouse with Apple, the charging port for the USB is underneath, which means the mouse is completely inoperable while you are charging it.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. I mean, Apple's brand value is astronomical because people do want to see the Apple interpretation of different products. However, that means that when something goes wrong, it goes really wrong.
True. I don't think they've got brand value in the car making space. In technology, absolutely. But that will be like saying Kellogg's have just made a laptop.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Or
you know,
Tesla have just made a phone.
exactly.
So what?
You know, yeah, exactly. So you're not going to go with it. Anyway, it's interesting because it's something that they have kind of been going, well, yeah, you know, we're looking into it or maybe, or whatever. Now it's official. Vump, that's it. And it's
Yeah.
good because,
And what's kind of the scale of this is astounding. I mean, this is a project that has cost billions and has involved changes of project manager, changes of technology, changes of scope. Bear in mind, we were starting with a car that was autonomous and didn't have a steering wheel, which slowly the expectations were brought down to it's an electric vehicle.
yeah.
Big whoop.
Anyways, Apple Car, yeah, it never felt like a real thing, so it's gone now. What else we have got in the news? Lots kind of happening in AI. Though, actually, do you know what's nice, kind of putting the show together this week? It's not all AI. There's so much going on in AI that often it takes over. This week, no, we've just got a few little bits on AI for you. And a new survey out today, done by Trinity College Dublin Business School for Microsoft Ireland, looking at Irish businesses and how they use AI. And it's astonishing to think that over half of Irish businesses are using AI now as part of their day-to-day.
Yeah. And this is partly where automation comes in, because we've been following automation for years. And the argument has always been that automation isn't there to replace your job. It's there to make you more efficient at your job. And now we're kind of replacing automation kind of in manual labor, in, you know, putting things together, in manufacturing. We're now getting AI entering into more mental, for want of a better word, for more theoretical professions. So say you're putting together a presentation. You need to explain something simply.
So instead of doing it replacing manual labor, it's replacing office labor, I suppose, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, if you want to look at it that way, which means that good, you're getting reasonable output. Bad, the actual skills people need to develop in the ungodly event of OpenAI crashing aren't being developed. That's a problem.
Yeah. You know what? That's a really good point, and I hadn't thought about that. And it's kind of like, you know, maybe it's like DIY. Like, I'm thinking like, you know, 200-300 years ago, you would be used to doing stuff around the house and DIY and fixing things and creating things that you need and stuff like that. Whereas now we don't. We just go up to Woodies and buy whatever it is we need. We wouldn't have a clue how to put it together. That's on the manual side of things. But you're right. If you don't have the mental skills to be able to achieve something and you're relying on AI, that's not a good future.
Yeah, because if you look at one of the professions that in theory should be in a lot of trouble, it's web development. Because all you have to do now is ask OpenAI to give me some code that will do something. And that's it. You know, never mind that you have a person that might see something down the road, or somebody that has read a new article that would find a vulnerability that needs to be patched. You are working off old-ish data. That's a problem. And as long as we are relying on OpenAI to plug holes that really should be handled by high-level professionals, we are going to have a serious problem. It's like the same way that young people use Wikipedia for school essays. You know, it's like
as an actual source of actual information. It's scary.
As an actual source of actual information instead of a starting point. You know, you are looking at information that, you know, has been crowdsourced, might not be accurate. So you got to learn the critical skill of going out and verifying something. You know, and this is the sort of issue that we're going to have with AI. Whenever you get code back, you're going to have to test it. You're going to have to make sure it's secure. All these things that kind of are maybe a little bit low down the food chain at the moment. People always say that security is the last thing to be tested when it comes to a deployment, which really annoys security people. But, you know, kind of makes sense if you're under instructions to come up with X number of deployments per day, which does happen.
I think you're talking about AI today when really what you should be talking about is AI in maybe 5 or 10 years' time as in the future, because AI is nowhere even near intelligent at the moment. I refuse to call AI artificial intelligence. I call AI an artificial intern.
Okay. Ben, you remind me of something. Do you remember years ago, there was a web developer in the States who paid a guy in India over Fiverr to do his work. He basically subcontracted his work to a guy in India, and he ended up getting paid quite well. And the guy in India ended up getting paid quite well until his managers discovered what he was doing and promptly went, "Okay, you are fired, sir.
We're taking on
your
the guy
time here is done."
Listen, I call it an artificial intern because what it can do is, yes, stunning, but it only gets like 60-70% of the job done. All right. We've got a really interesting project on at the moment. We're just doing a news project where we're using AI to gather the news and also to write a draft script. All right. And what I found is that AI is writing the script, but quite often doesn't get the core of the story and will often make up facts. There was a story about a woman who was murdered at home, and they said that the husband did it. But there was no mention of a husband or anything like that, or any man or anything. It was just the body of a woman had been found in an apartment, and that was it.
So where does something like that come from? Does it get compiled from statistical evidence?
It's very interesting how AI works, okay? There's a thing called the lone banana problem, all right?
Right.
Okay, and basically it came from somebody who asked an AI to generate a picture of a banana, and the AI couldn't. No matter what way he wrote the prompt, the AI was incapable of giving this person a picture of a single banana, because an AI doesn't know what a banana is. It's just a collection of pixels to it in a particular shape. And when it looks at the data that is in its massive model that is working from, bananas are most often seen in bunches. So it'll always draw a bunch of bananas because that's the data that it has. And that's what I'm saying about AI. When it comes to text, it will look at other texts and essentially it's kind of starts with the first word and then it figures, well, what's the most likely next word to go in there? And what's the most likely next word to go in after that? And it does it at lightning speed, and that's why it's able to generate articles and stuff like that. But it doesn't actually have an understanding of what it's looking at or what's actually important with what it's looking at. It's giving you what is the most likely sequence of words based on millions and millions of other texts. So it's not actually intelligent. Do you know what I mean? That's why I call it an intern, because it kind of gets the groundwork done for you, but you have to go in then and finish it off. That's the best way I can describe it. And I mean, even, Google have had their problems this week with Gemini, and we carried it last week on the show. We were talking about it was generating images of, when you were talking about popes and stuff like that, it was giving back pictures of females. There's never been a female pope, yet it thought it would be good, and all kinds of other things like that, so Google have kind of just paused their image creation until they get it right.
Yeah.
So it is.
And there have been all sorts of conspiracy theories over that. There has been, this is forced diversity and it's evidence of bias and all this kind of thing. So Sundar Pichai, who is the CEO of Google, is he CEO of Google or CEO of Alphabet? I need correcting on that. But he came out and said, yep, sorry, this isn't good enough. We're gonna stop with the images for the moment.
All right. Anyway, that's what's going on in AI this week. The other big news story of the week, and I've been watching it every single day, is the moon mission, which of course landed last Friday or last Thursday night, wasn't it? I fully appreciate how you would be glued to it. It's your jam. It was a bit disappointing because I was looking at it on YouTube. And it was like, it was like 11:30, 10:30 at night. I can't remember. It was late in the evening anyway, and it was on YouTube. And all we were looking at was a control room. And it wasn't a control room in the classic sense. It was like a room that had a large circular table in it with a map of Earth on it. Why Earth? Why didn't they put the map of the moon in it? But anyways, that's an aside. And then around the table then are people on laptops, essentially. And that was it. That's all you were looking at. You're kind of going, okay, right. And then you could just hear a voice in the background going, yeah, we've got 2 minutes to go. Everything's looking good. And then it landed and they went, we don't know if it's landed. We're waiting for it. Run this test, run that. And, kind of 10 minutes later going, yeah, we're on the moon. That's like, yippity doo dah. Guys, don't ever go and make Apollo 13 or any kind of a space related movie. Because it wasn't great to watch.
Not the most dramatic of things.
No, I was hoping for something like the moon landing from 1969, first man on the moon, blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff, like where it was all carried live, however. But it did land. Well, sorry. When I say land, all right, it more kind of fell, all right? and I think is a spectacular achievement, right? Because even though all the headlines are going, oh, it's a disaster, blah, 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 essentially what they did is they took this craft, it landed on a 30-degree slope, which is quite steep, all right? It broke a leg, all right? It still managed to take a selfie and send it home.
Well, there you go.
If you broke a leg on the side of a mountain, would you send a selfie?
Oh, a lot of people would, though.
Well, maybe they would.
They posted to TikTok.
There was down to a worker error or something, I believe, was it?
What a jerk thing to say. It's like, we can pin it down to this department here where 3 people work. Ah, come on. Protect your own. Just say unknown causes we'll investigate.
It is a jerk move. I think it's been a huge success because A, they landed, even the fact that it went on its side. Most of the experiments were still conducted. NASA had 6 experiments on board. All of them were carried out. NASA said it was a huge success because of that. NASA said it was a huge success because the entire mission cost them $120 million, which sounds like a whole load of money, right? But when you look at the moon landings from 1969, which cost $25 billion in 1969 money, I don't even want to think what it costs today. 120 million is like nothing. And then also on top of that, the headlines are now kind of, oh, well, that's it. It's over now. 6 days later. And the thing is, it's just going to shut down. It's shutting down for 2 or 3 weeks because it's going to be moon nighttime, which lasts roughly 2 weeks. No sunshine, no power, nothing going on. Other side of the moon, can't connect with Earth anyway, blah, 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 all of those reasons. But after nighttime, they're going to try and power the thing up again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can it be done?
We don't know because essentially firstly, it's nighttime on the moon. And secondly, it's on the south pole of the moon, right? So essentially it would be, can you imagine leaving your laptop outside for 2 weeks in Antarctica? Now, do you think it would work when you took it back in?
Debatable, really, isn't it?
Well, there you go. Same thing with the moon mission. So we'll see what happens with that. Unfortunate to see that the share price in Intuitive Machines has dropped in some ways. Okay. In other ways, now would be a great time to buy shares in Intuitive Machines because when they launch the second one and it works, that share price is going to go.
Yeah, buy in the dip, folks. Buy in the dip.
Buy the dip. What else we got happening in the news today? Some really good Star Trek tech, which I want to tell you about in a minute. But first, TikTok tanking. TikTok and their dispute with Universal Music we mentioned before. Do you remember what I said about how this would resolve itself?
You said TikTok would come out the winner, didn't you?
I said that they will sort it out and TikTok will pay up one way or the other.
Oh, yeah. How's that going for you?
Exactly. That's why I'm really interested in this. Essentially, what Universal are saying is you're using our music, so a royalty has to be paid, which everybody's agreed to. But Universal has said for this new deal, the royalty price will now be blah, 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 blah. And TikTok are going, are you nuts? We're not paying that much. We're promoting all of your artists, da, da, da. And all. So they're at that kind of little impasse at the moment. And I thought that they would figure it out because they actually both need each other. But TikTok is sticking its heels in and they're going, nope, okay, fine. We're taking all of Universal Music off our platform.
Yeah.
4 million plus tunes. And anybody who's used a Universal tune in one of their TikTok videos, they are getting an email to say, hey, guess what? The sound in your video is now going to be muted.
Important addendum to that.
Go on.
If you are for artists that have collaborated with Universal Music Group artists on a song. So you could have X featuring Y. The featuring Y output has to be removed as well.
It's so complicated. You've got featuring, collaborations, but I think this will also apply then to people who wrote songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is licensed by Universal Music.
And their catalogs.
And their catalogs and stuff like that. It's a nightmare.
So could you imagine someone like Max Martin being removed? I mean, what percentage of pop music is down to him at the moment?
I am amazed you know who Max Martin is because you like your rock stuff and he did all the tunes for Britney Spears and One
Taylor.
Direction probably and Taylor and all kinds of he's a genius.
I'm down with the kids. I know what's happening.
Yeah, so all of his stuff could be coming out. It's just nobody has really stood up to the record companies like this before and said, okay, right, we're not using your music. Nobody's done it.
Yeah, because I remember YouTube when this started, there was a clip of a baby and somebody had Prince playing, not even as a proper soundtrack, in the background.
Yeah.
And that's what kicked off the first legal action against YouTube. And of course, YouTube is the world's biggest platform now for music. It kind of sorted itself out. They came up with a royalties deal. And of course, you've got ads and various ways of monetizing all that kind of thing.
Yeah. YouTube ads, the worst invention, the scourge of humanity. Oh my God.
Spotify ads are getting up there.
All right. Okay. Well, anyways.
Well, you pay for them though. So
I pay for Spotify. And do you know what? I've recently paid for YouTube as well. And I've dumped Spotify. And the reason is very simple because Spotify was costing me 11 quid a month and YouTube is costing me, I think, 14 or 13. So I'm still getting the same amount of music. That's fantastic. And the YouTube audio app works almost as well as Spotify. It's not great, okay? Because YouTube tends to lump everything in. So all of your playlists are on your audio app, even though they're videos, and all of your audio albums are on your YouTube. But the advantage of not having to watch ads on YouTube is a godsend. So I say to anybody who's subscribing to, if you're subscribing to Apple Music, if you're subscribing to Spotify, whatever it is, look at the YouTube option because just to get rid of those ads on YouTube is a godsend. But anyway, just to wrap up with TikTok, yes, they're taking music off line at the moment, including Justin Bieber and Mariah Carey and Harry Styles. So maybe it's not too bad. Star Trek Tech. We had Mobile World Conference, which was kind of a little bit muted this year, I thought. I didn't hear as much from it.
I have not been bombarded with as much news from MWC as I usually am, which is a little bit strange. However, we do have this nice little gizmoid from Lenovo. You say Star Trek when you saw it. I'm thinking Avatar because there is a moment in Avatar where somebody swipes from one screen on one device and it lands on another.
Yeah, or Minority Report would be another one.
Yeah. As always, I mean, how great was that movie?
Yeah, so essentially it's a prototype laptop which they've come out with, which features a transparent OLED screen, so you can actually see through the screen and what's behind it, and all of your documents or whatever it is you're looking at are still on the screen. It's
Yeah, so this is Lenovo that have released this prototype. Not going to hit the stores anytime soon. Just sort of an example of what can be done. Just out of my cursory glance at it, did it actually have a keyboard or was it dual screen?
No, it's kind of dual screen in that where the keyboard is a screen that can display a keyboard.
Right. Okay. Not a huge fan of those.
So you're not getting that physical feedback as you type. You're literally just typing on a sheet of glass. Not crazy about that side of it, but it does come with a stylus, and I would imagine, as you say, it's a prototype, so they're just wondering how people will use it and what the reaction will be. And maybe it's more of a thing where you just use it more with a stylus. I had a thing during the week. I was with a client, took out my laptop, and for some reason the trackpad wouldn't work. And I was like, why not? Anyway, I fixed the issue, but it just wouldn't work. And it's amazing when you don't have a mouse or trackpad, how useless a computer becomes, unless you're good at shortcuts. And I'm good at shortcuts on the keyboard, and I still couldn't really use it. Then I remembered that it was touchscreen. So I was able to do a lot, but still quite limited in day-to-day computing. Do you know what I mean? So I was able to open documents and stuff like that. But so it was interesting, not having, I don't know where I ever got to that. Anyway, the Lenovo prototype. Is there a name on it? I can't remember. Did they give it a name?
Oh goodness, I can't remember offhand. I think it's one of those observe what we can do. Isn't it great?
Listen,
kind of things.
If you are listening to us, just do go Google search for Lenovo transparent screen. All right, and have a look at it for yourself. It's quite interesting. The other thing that came out of Mobile World Conference is Samsung have revealed a little bit more about their Ring, but I don't believe they've actually introduced the Ring just yet. But the whole idea of it, of wearing a ring on your finger, and that is monitoring your health and interacting with an app somewhere along that, just strikes me as Star Trek tricorder kind of territory. That you'd be doing that one day with your mobile phone. You'd be just scanning yourself and going, yep, I've got the flu.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I have to say, because there are, of course, smartwatches out there. There are health apps that I check mine every day to make sure I'm doing my steps. This is sort of closer in character to the Whoop, which is basically like a Fitbit, only it gathers more detailed data. And it's also a subscription service, which is quite expensive. So I'm not really a huge fan of that.
Everything's a subscription service now.
Yeah, but this links into Samsung's health. I don't know what the monthly is on that.
I've no idea. It'll probably be somewhere between 10 and 20. Everything is between 10 and 20. Do you know what I mean? And that's fine. When you look at it, you go, 200 quid for the year. That's fine. Until you've got 5 of these little things and suddenly that's €1,000. Now, kind of €1,000 after tax means that you've got to be earning, whatever, €1,500, €1,800 or something like that.
Oh, let's not get into cost of living stuff.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. The cost of living, all of it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. Do you know what I mean? None of them individually is expensive, but when you add them all up, it's like, what the heck is going on? I went through all of our subscriptions that we use, and I was paying somewhere close to $3,000 a year.
Wow. And are you a subscriber to, Netflix, Amazon, Sky?
All of that stuff. So, and of course the prices are going up just a little bit, Spotify went up, it's only €1. Amazon is kind of like, there's no change to your subscription, but we will be showing ads in the middle of the movies. It's like, what? But if you don't want that, it's only an extra €2 a month. You get rid of those ads. It's like, oh, God. Now I'm paying YouTube, whatever, 14 quid a month to not watch ads. It goes on and on and on and on. But the one thing we do know, Niall, is that for now and for all time, tech radio will always be free.
Yeah, darn tootin'.
Darn tootin'. There we go. Listen, that's the news for this week.
Delivering Irish tech news since 2006. This is Tech Radio.
The Tech Excellence Awards are in full swing right now, recognising the brilliant minds and groundbreaking advancements that are shaping the tech industry here in Ireland. And my question to you right now, just to consider, is what is to stop you from being one of those brilliant minds? Seriously. Entries are free. There's categories for everything. Best people, best company, best team, best project, Why don't you nominate yourself for an award at the Tech Excellence Awards? The closing date is coming up at Easter, which is only a month away. And there's going to be a full-on black tie ceremony in May, which is always a highlight of anyone's year. So do check it out. You get full details of this year's Tech Excellence Awards on the front page of our website right now, techcentral.ie. You probably know the phrase fastest finger wins or fastest finger first from game shows, but that can easily apply to the world of esports. Whether it's finding the right headspace to play or having manual dexterity to do so for a long time, esports has more in common with traditional sports than you might think. Professor Mark Campbell is a senior lecturer and director of the Esport Science Research Lab in Lero, the Science Foundation Ireland Centre for Software Research at the University of Limerick. He had a chat during the week with Niall Kitson about the role of attention and memory in esports.
Mark, for those who haven't heard about the Esports Lab down there in Lero, I kind of think it's fair to say it's been a bit of a game changer.
Thanks, Niall. Yeah, so the Lero Esport Science Research Lab was established in 2016. At the time, it was the first dedicated esports science research lab in Europe and one of the first in the world. And we're based here at the University of Limerick. And we study all aspects of esports science. So esports science is this lovely melting pot of different disciplines: computer science, software engineering, psychology, neuroscience, sports science, and data analytics. So we have a multidisciplinary team here who kind of try to answer some of these questions around esports science from the different disciplinary backgrounds.
I suppose it's important to stress that you're looking at kind of the cognitive elements of game rather than necessarily things like coding and narrative design. You're kind of adopting sort of a skills level approach.
Yeah, a big focus of the lab has been a skills level approach. We have we consider gaming and esport as a mind sport, much like chess or bridge and things like that. There obviously is a physical demand and element with it, but a lot of the focus has been around measuring the key performance indicators and skills of gamers. And a lot of those skills tend to come back to this kind of idea of superior neurocognition. We also develop software tests here in Lero, the Science Foundation Ireland Centre for Software Research, to assess these gamer skills. So we would design these kind of software tests to measure and isolate out these individual gaming skills and try and measure them then outside of the game and see if can we show game improvement as a result of training some of these skills.
When we talk about training and sort of as you've described it there, it immediately makes one think of sort of the brain training games that became very popular through Nintendo, and to a lesser extent, the likes of Wordle, that people will get up first thing in the morning and, have a go, and it makes them feel, slightly G'd up for the day. Have you found any sort of academic backing that these games, particularly the brain training games, can stave off conditions like dementia in later life, just having that little bit of activity? Or has the literature just shown that, playing a game makes you good at a game?
Yeah, there's very mixed results in the literature, I suppose, Niall. Probably because of kind of industries trying to get in on this active aging kind of area and make kind of large claims about how good their brain training games might be or how much they can ward off all these degenerative conditions. What the science is fairly clear on, though, is that, consistently and systematically engaging higher order cognitive processes by way of gaming or doing some sort of brain training is certainly beneficial to your brain health and your cognition. And there is some good science out there showing the benefits of that. And some of those things we notice now, even with when we look at university students, we see the ones who consistently play action video games tend to display superior cognitive characteristics than students who don't. Even surgeons who have experience gaming tend to be better surgeons than surgeons who don't have any experience of gaming. So there is something very interesting about engaging higher order cognitive capabilities through a digital medium or a virtual space like that, which confers some sort of benefits on the people who do.
Just to borrow an analogy from sports, I know Joe Schmidt, who used to coach the Irish rugby team, used to talk about the mind gym, sort of creating that, I suppose, for want of a better term, that virtual mental space where you can sort of focus on your job. Is that something that you're finding through gaming as you're describing it there? Maybe indeed it is.
Yeah, so I suppose I work in the physical education and sports sciences department here at the University of Limerick and in Lero, obviously. But in sports science, we see great advances in the last 20 years. So that in rugby, we see this idea of smart training or smarter training and, not training for hours and hours and hours at a time with such a physical demand. I suppose that the key then is to try to use that knowledge in gaming and esport to see what's actually a healthy and safe practice for doing things. So if we look traditionally at some of the professional esports teams, they would scrim or practice playing matches, and they might do that for 7 or 8 hours at a time, which obviously to you and me sounds like, an unbelievable amount of time to be sitting in front of a monitor, engaging in a computer game. So some of the ideas we've tried to bridge sports science practices into esports science is looking at this idea of deliberate practice or training an isolated skill such as a flick or some sort of a move. And we've shown that, if you train that skill for 10 minutes a day, that by day 3 you're significantly better at that skill. So we've kind of tried to do away with this idea of just playing more for the sake of playing more and hoping to get better, and actually address the whole, what are the key skills? Let's isolate them and train them in a very deliberate way for a lot less time than people actually realize. So 30 minutes of training as opposed to 7 hours has been shown to really benefit particular gaming skills.
Wow, really boiling down to those key elements of manual dexterity as well, to sort of focus on the physical element as well as or rather by removing the person from the narrative, which I suppose when you're looking to build core skills can be quite distracting.
Yeah, absolutely. And we look at, we take our lead from traditional sports as well, where they would do certain drills and certain technical aspects of their sport that come out of it. So, a golfer might practice their putting or their chipping or whatever. So they're doing drills to see, can they improve that part of their game, and then trying to insert that back into the kind of full package of playing and trying to win a golf tournament. So we're trying to do the exact same kind of approach for computer gaming and competitive computer gaming or esports.
Esports, of course, being a massive industry, not so much over here still, but in the Far East, they're kind of part of the pantheon of regular sports, really, such as the uptake and the level of, I suppose, cult of personality around some players. In dealing with esports teams over here, do you find an awful lot of parallels between, regular sports teams as you would have worked with them in the past? Are they picking up that sort of the competitive mindset? Are they the same, or does it come from a different place where perhaps it's somebody that wasn't very good at sports but is very good at this?
I suppose what we're seeing now with the professional esports teams is they're very much like other professional sports. They'll have nutrition support, they'll have psychology support, they'll have physical training and physiotherapy and all the kind of support structures that traditional professional sports have around them. That wasn't always the case. It's a very recent kind of development, I suppose, for some of these professional teams, but they see the need for, a whole person approach to an esport athlete, just like you would for, a traditional sport athlete as well. So we're seeing more and more of that. But esports is lagging a little bit behind because it is so new and it is such a a new phenomenon that they're catching up in terms of, smart ways to train and practice and thrive and so on. And up to now, really, I suppose the story has been how early some of these esports competitors retire because, their reaction time goes, or they have repetitive strain injuries because they're just training too much, So we're I suppose a lot of the work in the lab here is just kind of combating some of that narrative. There's no reason why girls can't be as good as guys in gaming because there isn't that physical element that's required for some sports. There's no reason that people can't play professionally into their 30s and their 40s like we see in traditional sports as well. So some of those aspects we're directly kind of targeting here with some of the work we're doing.
And those are issues that are common across all sports, is career longevity and balance. And I suppose equity plays a potentially a much bigger role in esports than in traditional sports where you would have mixed competitions. So in looking at the study that we're actually meant to be talking about today, which is, I suppose, the improved dexterity of people that do play games versus those who don't. Tell us a little bit about the methodology behind the study.
Yeah, no problem. So we were very interested we had already done some research where we had, shown that people who regularly play action video gamers tend to do better on mainstream tests of cognition, so attention, memory, and so on. And we wanted to explore that even further and do a really big, robust study. And we wanted to see, were they more immune to mentally demanding tasks as well? So if we put them through a really mentally demanding task, would they be able to do better than people who weren't, regular gamers? So we recruited 88 people into our study, and we divided them into a group of gamers who play 7 hours or more a week versus non-gamers who played less than an hour a week. And within those two groups, then we separated those two groups down into a cognitively fatiguing task or a control group where they had a kind of a quiet rest. And we measured their cognitive abilities pre and post either a mentally fatiguing task or a quiet rest task. And what we found was the regular video gamers tended to display superior cognitive capacities than the people who don't play video games. And they were, it was quite a big advantage. They were between 13 and 17% quicker and more accurate on two higher order cognitive capabilities, I'll call them. One is this idea of attentional control, controlling your attention on a task, switching, inhibiting, moving things around. So higher order attention, and also visual spatial memory. So the ability to learn and know your way around an environment and plot your way around that quickly and accurately as well. So people who play action video games tend to display a much superior profile on those two measures of cognition than university students who don't play video games.
Right. And I suppose maybe an element of that is that sort of sense of excitement, that sort of extra bit of adrenaline maybe they're carrying around to make them more receptive.
Bit of adrenaline from playing the video games, Niall, is it? Or what do you mean?
Yeah. Just that experience, or rather that regular experience, whether that has a general heightening effect on the nervous system.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm not sure if that's been established yet, really, that kind of idea of a dopamine hit or whatever. But there's plenty of things we do, plenty of hobbies and other activities where we would be getting that same kind of a physiological, stimuli or whatever. But I think the really interesting thing here is it's just another big piece of evidence that, playing video games is potentially actually good for you, which kind of combats this negative stereotype we hear sometimes about, playing video games is addictive or is not good for you and things like that. It's a really socially connected, really immersive activity, which is associated with better cognitive profiles of people who play video games than people who don't.
Lastly, Mark, I suppose one of the great validators of any scientific study is replicability. Where do your current findings sort of sit within the broader literature or within past studies so far? Is there anything really surprising here? Or is it a case of, yeah, we know this, let's take this study further?
Yeah, I suppose we've replicated previous work we've done here in our lab, showing this, this cognitive advantage that regular gamers have over non-gamers. We've replicated previous work from other labs, but it is still very early days. So more research is needed to kind of really enhance and make this kind of finding really robust. But another interesting thing we did was we are very much proponents of open science here in Lero. So what we're doing is we pre-registered all our expected results, our hypotheses, before we carried out the study. So we would have registered these hypotheses before we did the study to not, be biased in how we went about doing the study. And I suppose the surprising finding really was that gamers weren't susceptible or weren't less susceptible to mentally demanding tasks or cognitive fatigue. So they fatigued in the exact same way that non-gamers fatigued. So I think the interesting finding there is that, for people involved in really highly demanding, mentally demanding human-computer interactions, such as, air traffic controllers or surgeons, they fatigue in much the same way, or the implications of the findings are that they would fatigue in much the same way. So it's kind of important to get this information out there so they're not superhuman and can do these things for hours and hours and hours, at a time. But they do have higher order cognitive capabilities, but they get tired in much the same way as the rest of us.
And that was Professor Mark Campbell, the Director of Esport Science Research Lab at Lero.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
That's it for our show this week. Do check out some of the other stories online that we didn't have time to talk about in the podcast today. What kind of stuff have we got, Niall?
Yeah, we just talked to Mark from Lero, and guess what? Lero has a new deputy director. You can learn all about that. We also have one Irish company's contribution to an Earth observation mission. And lastly, we asked the question, can you trust cyber criminals to keep their word after you've paid their ransom?
Wow, based on a study that as well, actually. I thought that was a great story. You'll find those, of course, and more online at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday with a brand new show online and, of course, with RTE Radio 1 Extra. And do remember, please share our podcast with a friend in the industry or that you think might enjoy them. Just tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify, or now on YouTube as well. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, and from Niall Kitson, thanks for listening. Have a great weekend.
Remember, you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters, and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland, or listen with RTE Radio 1 Extra. Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io for techcentral.ie. From me, Artemis, live long and prosper.